isibuko seMaswati.
The basic protective measures against the new coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently and thoroughly with soap and water, or use alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain social distancing. Maintain at least 1 meter distance between yourself and anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Avoid touching eyes, nose, and mouth. Hands touch many surfaces and can pick viruses. Once contaminated, hands can transfer the virus to your eyes, nose, or mouth. From there, the virus can enter your body and make you sick. Practice respiratory hygiene. Make sure you and the people around you follow good respiratory hygiene. This means covering your mouth and nose with your bent elbow or tissue when you cough or sneeze. Dispose the used tissue immediately. If you have fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, seek medical help early. Stay home if you feel unwell. Follow the directions of your local health authority. Stay informed and follow advice given by your healthcare provider.
Right place, right time to be. Hello and welcome. The day is Monday. Once again, we meet. Hello and welcome. This is your host, Fabrice Msonera. And of course, Temidlalo. It is live as we take this next hour to look at some of the things, of course, that are making headlines locally. We just take a chance and speak to one of the top clubs and talk about cycling as a sport, for instance. One of the top clubs in the country is the MTN Kemani Cycling Club. We'll have one of the senior officials within the club, Mr. Dlamini, to tell us about the success of the club, why Kemani, what makes them who they are today, and some of the activities they do behind doors, some of the things that you might not know. Otherwise, later on, the in-house analyst, Linda Dlamini, will be next to me as we take a look at some of the top 5 sporting cause that one would say that they should be given a green light so far to begin their work, since they look like they cannot spread the COVID-19 easily. Those are the sports we say that they are likely to be not a contact sport. You speak about your golf, your pool, your shooting, all those sporting codes. We'll also speak to some of the officials on the online communication to understand how are they preparing if anything is to go in their favor. Internationally, we also woke up on another major headline, of course, as one of the top UFC fighter, Conor McGregor, has also announced his retirement for the 3rd time in a space of 4 years. He's done this before. We're used to this. But does he mean what he said this time around? We'll take a look at that, of course, in the company of the Dlamini. Otherwise, for those who are watching us live, it is a beautiful welcome. And of course, we're still live on YouTube platform. And this is a chance, of course, I'm already in the company of Lindani Dlamini, MTN Kemani Cycling Club. Yes, when you talk about cycling as a sport, I think it's one of the dominant sport. But maybe to start, one would want to say you are a team manager, but you are also a cyclist.
Yes, of
Let's
course.
Lindani. Who is Lindani within the team? Yes, you're the team manager, but in terms of playing a role, also being a cyclist, one will want to know if also you take part of the activities. Do you go on the road and take a bicycle and also cycle?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm part of the team. I joined the team some couple of years back. So as a cyclist, as a social rider, of course. So I take part in a number of races locally, even in South Africa. Then this year, I'm the team manager, making sure that the smooth running of the team. And we had targets for the year. Unfortunately, there was the COVID issue, but we still believe the year is still long. We're still going to recover and make sure we achieve some of the goals we set for the year.
Yes. When you talk about maybe before we talk about the club, we're still talking about you at this point in time. When you talk about you being a cyclist casually, I think off record you told me that some of you personally you mentioned that it's not something that you would say you're putting at the peak. But one would want to know your biggest achievement within that industry, the cycling you're talking about, in terms of any competition that you have attended, and one would say, wow, that's a record, that's an achievement.
Yeah, it's actually the number of medals that we collect, the preparation that goes before every race, especially the more competitive races in South Africa.
True.
So I've attended a number of races for the past 3 years in South Africa, including the 94.7, which is in Joburg. It's a total road closure. It's more like close to the biggest race in Southern Africa. So this year is going to be the fourth year going for that race. So it's a huge... Sorry?
You go there?
Yes, I will go there. So, and it's a huge race. Yeah, a lot of challenges around Joburg. Joburg looks flat, but when you're on the bike, it feels different.
Now, when you talk about South Africa and you talk about their races, and you've seen how we are as a country, before maybe we go into the next topic, is to say, now the level, what differs the two countries in terms of competition performance? What can we learn from them? If anything they are maybe advanced, what can we learn from them?
Mainly is the sponsorship around the sport. They've got more professional riders, guys who spend day in, day out on the bike. So I think that's the major difference. And I think our teams or our cyclists are more capable as well, but it's just that we're not that professional, so we cannot live on the bike. So that's the major difference. Otherwise, in terms of competition, our teams and our guys, Muzi for instance, has been to South Africa in one of the latest races he did last year. He was very competitive in the race. Yeah.
So we need to gear up and make our cyclists become more professional. They can also do the best
if we support them more. Yes, of course.
All right, let's go to the business of the day. MTN Kemani Cycling Club. I think when you listen to the word MTN Kemani Cycling Club, I think I want to understand the word MTN is there because they are the title sponsor.
Of course, MTN is the title sponsor.
Then the Kemani word, that's maybe where people want to understand where does it come from.
Yeah, Kemani came from when the guys started the team. So they used to train together. So anyone they would encourage them to say come on. So from there then they started saying come on, then they ended up saying Kemani.
Wow, there you have it.
So that's where it comes from.
So you've been in partnership with MTN for how long? And
it's been 7 to 8 years now in the partnership with MTN as a title sponsor for our main race, which usually happens in September.
All right. And in terms of maybe when one was to look at the number of members that you have, in terms of the large number, I know it's one of the biggest club, and it's growing as we get into New Year's, and New Year's there's always a growth. Maybe what makes it an exciting club? What is it a big club so far in the country? When you talk about MTN Kemani.
Yeah, when you talk of Kemani, of course you're talking about one of the biggest clubs in the country. Number one, in terms of the performances we've done, in terms of the support that we give to the competitive boys, who have won almost all the races in the country. As we speak, the champ comes from MTN Kemani. So that's how big the team is in terms of support, in terms of structures, and also in terms of the numbers. We've got more than 30 cyclists in the team, and in terms of the active participation as well, even on the race itself that is sponsored by MTN, which is hosted by Kemani. So from there, that's where you derive the fact that MTN Kemani is one of the biggest teams in the country.
You touched on, I think if I'm not mistaken, you touched on Mangayane. And then I think that's the background of the club. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, you have an annually charity event that you hold in Mangayane. Tell us about that, and how is that maybe one way you give back to the community?
Yeah, of course, the team started in Malkens, and the guys who started the team used to train from Malkens to Mangayane and back. So they love the hills of Mangayane as one of the biggest challenges in the country. So then the first race was hosted in Mangayane, of course. Then we decided as a team to say the proceeds of every race we do goes into charity. So we adopted one of the Cape Points in Mangayane. So we support the Cape Point every year.
Maybe that's one way you exercise your charity case. Maybe other ways, maybe one, if you want to understand the purpose of the club.
The purpose of the club, of course, is to compete competitively in terms of sports. But more than that, we encourage everybody to join and everybody to exercise. So the wellness part of it, that's what we like the most. Cycling, you can have a race where you have the oldest rider being 75 years or so. Other sports, you quickly retire, but in sports, you can, in cycling, you can take longer to retire. So it's one of the sports that has the longevity in making sure that as you grow older, you continue to ride the bike.
And then you talk about maybe joining and making sure that you are taking part of the club. How do one join? If one wants to join, nangisi namuhla ngoba nje ngosi ngithi mina a sporting code that I belong to right now.
Yeah, of course,
So
you'll be joining Kemani.
yes, if since I've not joined Kemani, how do I join?
You come to us as member. I mean, as management of the team. You show your interest. As a social rider, of course, you come with your own bike. Then we advise you on which bike to buy. That is going to help you to gel with the team in terms of the codes that we do. Then from there, then you can take it and make sure that you pay the annual subscriptions. Then you are a member of the team. Then from there, there's coaching, there's development, and there's also kind of support or guidance in terms of what you eat and what you don't eat as a sports person.
So you even have you even have personal trainers to take a look at you, and then the body figures and everything. Let's talk about also you touch on professionalism, and I think that's one thing that maybe South Africa have achieved. When you look at, for instance, Muzi Shabao is one of our top cyclists, not to say the least, but are you looking at a way maybe you can make these cyclists full-time cyclists, to say, because in Eswatini we still have a problem where sports are not fully professional. You have professional or semi-professional. Are you looking at a way where you can at some point say people just belong to the club full-time? You work for cycling, you work for MTN Kemani Cycling Club full-time. Is there anything similar to that?
It is, yeah. It is, of course, a dream of the team, because some of the boys, they start as young, like Muzi. Then they want to go professional. Then they will find themselves maybe having to go into South Africa. But if we had all the structures in the country to support them, they will be professional in the country. So it is all about making sure that when we position our goals as teams to our sponsors, that is inclusive of all the teams that are there in the country, we make sure that we include the professionalism in running the team itself, because that's what sponsors look for, to say, are they getting value for money from their sponsorship? So if we can have that consistency as teams, then we can bake in most of the sponsorships, and we can be able to sustain, also support our professional cyclists.
Maybe still on that, you as a club, maybe in terms of executive managers and everything, have you looked at that to say, sinaso sifiso ukuthi one day singazama ukuthi at least our cyclists be professional full-time playing for the club?
Of course, in our team strategy, it is there to develop the boys. So that's why we call the team where Muzi is the development team, because we've got a bigger vision for the young boys, and that is where we want to take them, as most of them complete their school and they go more professional.
You have a race, a classic road race.
Yes.
Tell us about that and its achievement. M10 Road Classic.
It's been one of the biggest races, and it's been one of the most attended races in terms of international cyclists. Every year we bring in South African cyclists. The year before last, we brought in team members. I mean, teams from Namibia, teams from Mozambique, teams from Botswana. So in that sense, we try to make sure that we promote the country also through the sport, and also to challenge our teams to see what other countries are doing in terms of the cyclists who don't have the resources to go and participate in races outside the country. So that's the objective of the race, to bring the cyclists from out there into the country, so that everyone can take the learnings and everyone can get the challenge.
And then how is the picture out there? Because this is Muzi Shabang on the picture, and I think this is one of the race in stake, but not to say this is MTN Road Classic, but I'm talking about Muzi's. I think he's one of the your cyclists within the club, one of the top in the country, of course. When you look at maybe when people attend Road Classic, MTN Kemani, what's the message out there when they go back, when they come from those countries and they go back? What do they say about our race and the standard of the cycling and the country at large? What do they go with? What do we give them to go with?
Okay, firstly, they are surprised to see the level of professionalism in our races in the country, and also the challenge they get from guys like Muzi and the other guys from the other teams. So every year when they come here, they think they will find it easy, but every year they find new challenges. And also the terrain itself, it gives them a challenge to start with, compared to where they come from in the other countries where they've got more flat terrains. So year on year, everyone looks forward to come, and every year we have new cyclists coming from the other countries to join the race because they've heard about it. And it's more advertised. We position our race in the South African calendar as well.
I would love to have the pictures again. It's something I wanted to ask just for out of curiosity, but we'll wait for the pictures to go again. Now, when I'm looking at the picture, you're an expert, you tell me, This is probably 15 minutes after the race has started. What's in the mind of a cyclist at this stage? Because there's a lot of mind games ongoing. Not to say this is Muzi, I think is second from behind, but doesn't mean all these ones in front will win the race. But I think the person was taking the shoot as the car was moving. Wanted now to show you from the back where now everyone is. Now, what's in the mind of the cyclist when they are moving at this point in time? Does this mean this guy has the advantage? Look at someone is overtaking.
Yeah, someone is overtaking. So normally in the sport, there is teams. It's a team sport as well. So every team comes with a strategy of how to win the race. So like if you see Muzi there at the back, he's trying to see what the other teams, as you can see, there's more kind of yellow jerseys in front of him. So he's trying to measure the team and trying to read their strategy as they are starting the race. So from there, that's where you are able to then position yourself as a cyclist to say how do you want to attack. And also as you've seen, he's the only person from Team Kemani within that cluster or that peloton. So he's trying to work through the other guys who are standing in front of him in terms of breaking the air, making sure that he doesn't run tired, because the other guys will be interchanging, but he's the only person from Kemani. So from there, that's why he's always sitting at the center of the peloton. And he's going to have a breakaway later on.
Of course. Now, that's the mind game that goes with the sport as we look at some of the pictures there. Now, COVID-19 has hit the entire world. I want to believe you as cyclists also have been under and have been affected. Let's talk about you. I think personally and on behalf of the cycling club, when you look at Kemani is one of the top clubs. So if then the top club was affected, then the other clubs were affected. How much were you affected as a club and as a sport?
We were affected in terms of participation in races because most of us take challenge in saying we set targets to say by this month I'm training for this particular race. So if the race is not there, you find that sometimes even our training is affected. But not that much because we were able to train individual training even during the period of COVID. So, but as a team sport, you need to benchmark yourself against other cyclists. So that's the only challenge that we faced. But in terms of training, most of us are training. We've got a platform where most cyclists register. It's called Strava. So on Strava, you can see what other cyclists are doing. And from there, you can even pick challenge from people you don't know. So in terms of competitiveness, we were able to continue training and making sure we're fit for the next race as it's going to start now.
I'm sorry, I'm going to pick on Muzi again. There he is. I think we're using him as an example because he's from your club and he's on the screen. He talked about joining a club in South Africa, but COVID has affected him and all those things. What are other things that maybe apart from tournaments? What are the things maybe in terms of projects that we had as a club that were affected under this COVID?
So this year we wanted to make sure that we have more people joining cycling. So we're planning family rides around May. I think that's when we're going to stand at the first one. Then again, before the race in September, we're going to have another family ride, which I think we're still proposing now to have. So in terms of that kind of development side of things, we were delayed a little bit and we'd already secured support from our sponsor. So in that sense, we're going to develop even younger kids like Muzi still at school. So we're going to use him as well to motivate and show other school kids to say there is life in sports, there is life in cycling in particular.
All right. And of course, when you under that condition of the weather, the rain, how do you gain your momentum? Because I think this is maybe 20 minutes before the end of the race, but you see the momentum is there. Maybe let's move on. We'll get to that again. Now, let's look at the situation that is ongoing under the sport rec. I think you as a club, you as a sport, you're also under the sport council.
Yes.
Do you believe that you are a sport that you don't carry much threat, that you should be given a green light to carry on? I'm not trying to say that
the sport is a no-contact sport. In most instances, as you can see even from the pictures or the videos we're running on screen, there is space between the cyclists. But maybe the only question we could have was during the registration and the startup and the starting line of the race. So where people can wear masks. Then as they ride, then they can drop their masks as they are clearing space amongst each other. So I think it's one of the sports that can start. And also it's a cardio sport, which is good for your lungs and everything. That is where your COVID affects your body. So in terms of the energy and the breathing and everything that happens within your lungs, I think that's where again you would test to say you are still healthy and you are straining those lungs to make sure that we fight COVID in many ways.
siyayibona na aspect yaka health because siyangeta ukuthi then the lungs and everything. Now, do you think, it's still in your opinion though, no one will hold you against whatever you'd say today. Do you think, in your opinion, yes, you should be given a green light, and yes, anytime soon you should start based on the facts you just mentioned?
I think it's best to look at the stats. What I've noted is the number of people that are recovering from COVID-19. So I think now we're sitting at around 60% of recoveries in the country. So basing on that, then it shows that as a country we are fighting, we are winning the fight against COVID. So there could be other things that can also help us to manage then the mental capacity now. To say physically we are coping within this challenge, but then mentally maybe some of us are getting those challenges. So opening up certain sports, I think it will help us as a nation to also release our thinking from COVID and move on as a country.
There you have it, Lindani Dlamini. Wow, a beautiful moment, of course, in the studio. I think if there's another sport you play, I think we can have you again in the studio. I think you seem to give us what we want. This is, of course, some of the pictures from one of the top cyclists from MTN Cayman. Thank you very much for being with us.
You're
and
welcome,
I think we keep in touch to understand how the club is doing, how the sport is doing. And I think whenever you do charity events, whatever, we take place and we take part of those events and understand what the association and the sport and the club itself is all about. Thank you
so much. We look forward to that. All right,
there you have it. Lindani Dlamini, of course, in the studio. He's currently, this year, he's the team manager of the M10 Cayman Cycling Club, telling us about the ins and outs of the club. What is Cayman about? When was it, started back in 8 years ago, as he mentioned, and what are some of the things that they put in front, trying to achieve excellence when it comes to cycling. It is a sport, not to spread so much confusion out there. It is a sport also that is considered currently, for those who are practicing it and those who love it, that it doesn't carry much threat when it comes to COVID-19. Will they be given a green light to carry on? We'll also touch on that with Lindani Dlamini after the break. Take a look at this.
COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by a new coronavirus introduced to humans for the first time. It is spread from person to person, mainly through the droplets produced when an infected person speaks, coughs, or sneezes. These droplets can land in the mouths or noses of people who are nearby. These droplets are too heavy to travel far in the air. They only travel approximately 1 meter and quickly settle on surfaces. This is the reason person-to-person spread is happening mainly between close contacts. The exact time that the virus can survive on surfaces is not yet known. So it is wise to clean surfaces regularly, particularly in the vicinity of people infected with COVID-19. Hands touch many surfaces, which can be contaminated with the virus. You should therefore avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth, since contaminated hands can transfer the virus from the surface to yourself. When coughing or sneezing, cover your mouth and nose with the bend of your elbow or use a disposable tissue. If a tissue is used, discard it immediately into a closed bin. The most effective way to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus is to clean your hands frequently with an alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water. This will eliminate the virus if it is on your hands. Stay healthy and prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Wash hands now. Wash hands now. Wash hands now. Wash hands now. Hand washing is one of the best ways to keep from getting sick and staying healthy all year long.
There you have it. I'm already in the company of Lindani Dlamini, the in-house analyst. Ngivusele Dlamini.
Ngiyavusela Fabrice ngibonga lithuba lekubalana ngitithuba lokukhulu ngivusela imali viewers labukela mhlambe ku TV yabo noma lababukela ku internet ku YouTube
platform
laba uyibukela YouTube incumbi yabo mhlambe ngilase bahambe kakhulu ngetebuchwephesha but nje bonke imali viewers Fabrice.
Yes. ngiyiva bathi labathandazako bakhanza ukuthi basekumbina isolation, praying, fasting, but nawe ngathi kulamalanga khona le research bewuyenda ekumbini somewhere about sports bubhizi ngani Nkosi?
Ma sports Fabrice ngicabanga ukuthi dinvo lesiphila ngato vele isikhathi lesiningi ngiyaye ngitinike isikhathi kulamalanga ngihleli phansi kunetimvo lengitibuka ko study lengisendako ngema sports more especially nyalo kuma players beka angekho active lokuthi kahle kahle bangakhona ukuqhubeka kanjani babuyele basheshe babuyele badlale sindileke le study bengixhumana nalabanye mhlambe lo munye nje wabo technical director waka football association because my colleagues
so tight
but diningi nalabanye bo coach including bo coach bema sports lehlukahlukene ngisaya kulabanye ngicabanga sibagatsile nje ngidakuya nje be cricket ngidamthola Delisa wakamalinga
bese senza be vice president
aphenza be vice president ukuthola lokuthi kahle kahle kuba ngasheshe babuye njani ema athletes abo look affected by COVID-19.
There you have it. That's an introduction. He does not need one when he's in the studio. And of course, for those who just joined us after the break, we are live on YouTube and the other social media. Now, let's talk about the recommendation coming from the sport, council and other sporting codes that think they are not a threat. But cycling is among those. Sports we talk about today. Today we touch on cycling, golf, pool, shooting, and those 5. But cycling is amongst those 5 sporting codes. And then I think when you talk about cycling, Dlamini, singasho ukuthi M10 Kamani Cycling Club, singasho ukuthi nenye clubs, singasho ukuthi ihambe embili in terms of performance and everything. Lindani Dlamini usuka la istudio. Utsinzi indaba yokuthi they are looking indlela ukuthi bangasitha ama-athletes or cyclists ukuthi aperforme professional noma adlalele the club professionally. Something nice. I mean, if someone can say I work for M10 Cycling Club, sesibabona bo Chris Froome laba wina bo Tour de France, they are cyclists full time, and that's how they make a living. If singaba naye musisha ba usathi ukuthi full time is a cyclist and he makes a living through that, it's something nice.
Fabrice ngicabanga ukuthi leyo yinto lenhle because kutawukhulisa le sport. Ngicabanga nje Fabrice ukuthi ihleli cyclist kusukela ekseni iyastadisha ukuthi inga improve kanjani ema races akhe. Ngicabanga ukuthi into lenhle le mina nawe njengoba sesishilo ukuthi sisebenza sport ebusuku nasilele siputsa sona because into lesitiphilisa ngayo. Ngicabanga ukuthi if nangala ku sports kungendeka kanjalo cyclist ekseni lo muntu nangabe abantu baphethe dikhwama tabo ba M17 baphethe lifosholo labo ba M17 yena ungena emgwaqweni uyabuka uyajima. Ngicabanga ukuthi yinvo lenhle leyo but lokumcoka kakhulu ukuthi baqale bathole lama sponsors ikimani as a club banaso sponsor uyabona le kuyinvo lenhle leyo. If onke lama clubs alama cyclists ale cycling angakhona ukuthi athole ama sponsors then bakhona ukuthi babhadale lawo ma cyclists. Ngicabanga ukuthi singakhula le sport because vele siyafuna sport. Ngike ngasho before ngathi emhlabeni wonke ubekisa nje ngama cyclists international even naba ngalabo tennis ukhuluma ngabo Roger Federer ukhuluma ngabo Rafael Nadal bonke labo labo baphila i-tennis. Ngicabanga ukuthi nathi slowly but surely sitawugcina sifikile.
There you have it. Of course, cycling is one of those sports we can say, sporting codes, we can say they do not carry that much of a threat. Of course, if anything is to go by, they think they can handle the situation. If, of course, they're given a green light. And that was maybe one person who was in the studio, Mr. Lindani Dlamini, who touched on the aspect to say anything can be a problem before the race, maybe after the race as well. But during the race, there's nothing to be worried about. No contact at all. Now, that's one. Second sport, it's tennis, where I think maybe we just if we get a chance to talk to the president of the association, Maxwell Jele, to also to understand some of the things that we introduced, measures and how the ins and outs and how they're going to stop the spread. We also hear from that. But while we're waiting to hear from that, tennis as a sport, we just touch on cycling. Now, Ibuga, as a sport, is there a way they can practice full time without causing problems, if anything is to go by, to say you are given a green light?
For tennis Fabrice ngicabanga ukuthi bangaqala ba practice ubona cause ngeke ba affect kangako noma mhlambe akusiyo I contact sport le I tennis nawubuka nje ukuthi ubuka le tennis court ngicabanga ukuthi nalobuze bayakhanta cause umvuna ngabe aseva ngale nalolumnye angale shosi labamvu labo ba over 20 meters apart so uyabona ukuthi kude I threat laba ngayikhoza noma basonzela abadlala la angiboni ukuthi 3 meters bayamendlula so kani ngeke kuthiwe at least meter so nangabe kungetulu kwabo 3 meters le court ke iyonke yona in 23 something 23.7 meters long so uyabona ukuthi kude mhlambe lokuphathamiseka lokungabangana la ka tennis ngicabanga nje ukuthi nabangavunyelwa babuyele badlala.
Yeah, I will have to catch you, Dlamini. I'm already online with Mr. Maxwell Jere, the president of the Eswatini Tennis Association. We welcome you, Mr. Jere, online on Eswatini TV live. The show is Temidlalo.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Jere, I'm also in the company of Linda Dlamini, and we are live on the sport show. We just want to talk to you about the sport itself and the association. What's your feeling as an association to say, do you think maybe one of those sports that do not maybe carry as much threat in terms of spreading the virus? If anything is to go by, maybe to say tomorrow you are given a green light, you can practice and you can continue your competitions, you can allow your athletes or your tennis players to start training. Do you think terms and conditions will be put in place to ensure that the spread of the virus is not too much?
Thank you very much, Fabrice. Maybe I must first indicate that I think, as everybody is probably aware, the general public at large as well, that tennis is really a non-contact sport. We are all aware of the dimensions of a tennis court and how many players normally get involved in a tennis match. So it's either you have singles where you've got a player on each side of the court, or you have doubles whereby you've got two players on each side of the court. So by the nature of the sport itself, it is a non-contact sport. We've further indicated to government through the National Sports Council a couple of weeks ago of our desire to actually return back to action in spite of the COVID issues and the challenges that are prevailing currently. We strongly believe that with adherence to the WHO regulations and government stipulations, we can safely return back to the court and ensure that our activities are resumed.
Maybe just for someone, Mr. Jere, who's watching the program right now, I think the first question that will come into his mind or her mind right now is to say, if you are given the permission, if maybe the request is approved, one would want to say, what are some of the immediate actions that will take place in terms of tournaments, recreation events? What are some of the things that you have already in place to say, once you regain momentum, you can start?
No, we have basically been on standby since we suspended activities. Probably, as you are aware, that our operational calendar runs from April to the end of March every year. So as we were approaching end of our operational year in March, that is when COVID kicked in. But I must say that we had actually already drawn up our new calendar of events, which was already packed with activity for the rest of the year. So there's a lot. We are eagerly waiting. We've got a number of tournaments, particularly on the junior side, but most interestingly as well, in this first quarter, tournaments that we have for senior tennis. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of movement when really the curtain has been raised, whereby we'll be launching new tournaments that are going to be upcoming. We'd really like to call upon particularly tennis players to really be on their toes and to expect a lot of movement when activity resumes.
I mentioned earlier on, Mr. Jere, that I'm in the company of Linda Dlamini. I think he has one or two questions to raise to you as the president. Go ahead, Mr. Dlamini.
Mr. Maxwell Jere, sikubingelele. Umbuto lenginawo nje Mr Jele ukuthi nangabe senibuya ndawuciniseka kanganani ukuthi badlali ba safe cause siyathi ukuthi ima equipment lekudlalwa ngawo vele bayasebenzisa tandla ndawuciniseka kanganani association ukuthi badlali ba safe.
Asibonge kakhulu Mlangeni. Angibhede nje kwecala ngozi lokuthi njengoba nje nanathi siwasuspendile ama-activities ngenxa ye-COVID, lokhu kukhona kwendeke emhlaba wonke jikelele. Siyakhulumisana-ke cishe onke malanga sikanye ne-International Tennis Federation bobabe bethu kwekuthi ema-regulations sebawakhokhile nje nanabo kwekuthi uma sekaqalile emave kuvula njengoba nje nanathi anticipate lokuthi kahle kwendeke ngalana nathi tinto lekufanye ukuthi sithi bhasope nalokuthi nanawo lo mdlalo le ndlela lesidlala ngakhona naku lesi sekutoshintsha kuso lesikhathi lesi. Ngitobekisa nje ekuseni i-tennis uma udlalwa lo mdlalo nase sengicedile kudlala kuvamise ukuqhawulwana netandla ngalokuthi vele sport lesi-friendly and the like, but nje tonke leto tinto leto vele tisamisiwe kwanyalo ukuthi nasibuyele emuva sidlala indzaba yokuqhawulana netandla kufuthi ukuthi siyibeke eceleni. Kwesibili, emkhathini wawo lo mdlalo uvamise ukuthi kube nekushintshana kwawo lama-side alama-court kwekuthi ukhanze ukuthi na udlala ngalana emva kwema-game lathide ubese soyashintsha uyangale. Nakhona-ke vele bacinisile lokuthi kufute ukuthi nasishintshisana la e-tennis court singaphambani mhlambe on one side of the court, kufute munye aphume ngalana lomunye aphume ngale. Baphindze-ke bachubeke bakhulume ngetindzaba tabo breaks in between la khona kuba ma-water break a-tennis lokuthi nalapho kufute ukuthi sibhasobhe kwekuthi badlala abayidlalako le-tennis mhlambe leyo match labayidlalako bangahlali kanye kube ne-separation noma le-social distancing lesikhuluma ngayo. So ngingasho nje kwekuthi diniyenti tona letinhlangothi lesesibativetile lesithemba ukuthi nanathi sibukisana wona ema-regulations aka-WHO kanye nanawo ama-regulations ahulumende baka-Ministry of Health lahambelana nabo-social distancing nabo-sanitizing. Sitobasho vele kwekuthi leto tinto leto tiyalandzelwa. Kuma-tennis court-ke ethu mhlawumbe yinhlanhla nalokuthi ama-spectators ka-tennis sithi ama-spectators lamaningi kakhulu. Siyathemba kwekuthi ikakhulu yona i-National Tennis Center lekhona kalubamba nale arrangement lekhona nje yokuhlala mhlambe kwebantu netitulo uyasivumela lokuthi siyi-practice le-social distancing. Lengicabanga ukuthi ngiyo leto bamcoka nje uma nje sizoqala sichubeka sibuketa bona empini.
Mr. Chair, in the interest of time, just maybe 30 seconds or a minute. I think in our last conversation, at some point on our daily news, interviews, you highlighted that we're expecting equipment coming from the International Federation to support some of the activities that you do, including wheelchair tennis. Maybe one would want to find out how far is that going, and has anything maybe got back to you in terms of feedback?
Thank you very much. Certainly, unfortunately, COVID came at a time whereby, we were expecting our consignment. In fact, we were expecting two consignments from the International Tennis Federation. The first consignment is our normal annual consignment in relation to the JTI program, which is our school tennis program. And then the second equipment is in relation to our new program, which is wheelchair tennis. Fortunately, what has happened is that this equipment, is a consignment of various types of equipment, tennis balls, tennis rackets, strings and the like. And you find at times that this equipment is manufactured in different places around the world. So where it is currently, this consignment is all in one place. It is now at the ITF in London, fortunately. And it's just awaiting the liftment of the ban that is happening worldwide. So ITF is also going to take cue from us if we inform them that tennis, has been unbanned or the activity has been lifted. We are going to advise them and also advise them that we are now ready to receive the equipment. So that is one of the key aspects that we're looking forward to with the resumption of tennis activity in the country.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much for your time, and I think we will keep in touch to find out how you're doing in terms of getting that equipment, and maybe when you get back to the activities, then we get a report from you, and how is it going?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Maxwell Chere, the Eswatini Tennis Association president, who's giving us some of the concerns. And I think your question, I mean, is to say measures sitawuenshurisha kanganani ukuthi labadlali umdlalo basafe, and I think uvethele tinye tindlu 1 and 2 ukuthi vele tindlu tabo water break letindlu lethu akufune ukuthi tibe khona ngoba i-contact kwaze kwaba ne-contact then singasho ukuthi badlali bakurisk.
Ngicabanga ukuthi i-clear Fabrice ubeke kwacaca Maxwell. Ngicabanga ukuthi i-tennis ngilemanye ama-associations lwabona ukuthi alidwa bamvula abane vision bamvula ungathi nawo babuta anytime bakutshele bakunika impendulo yakho. Ngicabanga nje ukuthi ubekile kwacaca ukhulumile ukuthi i-tennis i-sport leso lesi friendly nangabeka kanjalo bachawulane labadlali before kungenwe lapha e-court, but ngeke baze bakwente lokho noma sekuthiwa kunale break shintshwa iset angeke labadlali baze badibane lo mntu awuphuma ngale lo mntu aphume ngale. Ngicabanga ukuthi into tonke letinvo leto labantu ababutadona naka sports council ukuthi nitawuqinisekisa kanganani ukuthi badlali ba safe ukubekile kwacaca kuyacaca.
There you have it. Let's move on to golf. This is another sport singasho ukuthi Dlamini ligaluva. When you talk about ligaluva, it's another sport we can try and see if they are not a contact sport. Singathini Dlamini, we look at golf. Can you ensure ukuthi nabangena kule course for 9 holes labadlala 9 holes nabadlala 18 holes, can you ensure ukuthi ba safe, there is no contact?
Idalova Fabrice sike sakhuluma nangayo kaningi kakhulu. Ngicabanga ukuthi ingilemanye ama sports labangachubeka abadlali kunedi nje kudinga ukuthi baqinisekise ukuthi le equipment la bayiphathako letikhwama nalabadlala ngabo tonke letinvo leto tiyafuthwa ngama sanitizer ukuthi kuze ukuthi le golf nangabe ikubamba ingasaleli ithelele lo khedwayo. Ngicabanga nje ukuthi letinvo leto if bangakhona ukuqinisekisa noma basho bona ukuthi okay sine i-plan to eat bangachubeka abadlali because akusi contact sport.
There you have it. Another sport that one want to mention is pool. When you talk about pool, one would understand that it's not a place where you say you're going for a pool, field where there's a field. In most cases, a pool is found in a gathered area. One would say it's a socialized area. I don't want to use the term actually in Dlamini. I would have maybe a way to contact the president of the Pool Association, Mr. Muntu Dlamini, where he once mentioned that one of the challenges that they have is that pool in sport that's not the mentality. They want to change that mentality. But when you look at it, and the fact that now if that's the case, is it a sport that does not carry much threat now?
Ngiworried ngepool Fabrice ngicabanga ukuthi ipool yes akusi contact sport but ngiworried ngalendzawo la incumbi la dlalelwa khona because siye sakhava nani ema games incumbi pool incumbi yabo Mangayane abo Malkenzi kudlalwa vele la busy khona so until ipool ithole mhlambe indzawo yawo sengibekise nje ngamavuso lapha eholeni ukuthi bathfakele khona lawo matafula abo bayadlala then kuyatiwa ukuthi kungena abadlali but bakungendekile ovele ngicabanga ukuthi kutaba nale challenge lenkulu because as soon as kuvula inyelwa tindzawo ukuthi abantu baya endzaweni tekujabula bataba nayo le challenge because nawuvumela abantu endzaweni tekujabula nabo badlala bataba khona vele abantu batobukela.
As we wait for Mr. Dlamini maybe to be on the line so that we ask you 1 or 2 questions, vele inzaba emanzini pool club Dlamini ukuthi nyalo bona sebadopthile indlela yokuthi basitha. Now let's go to him straight. Mr. Dlamini is online, the Eswatini Pool Association president Muntu Dlamini. Ngivusele Dlamini sisehlelweni Temidlalo live, and I'm in the company of Linda Dlamini.
Asibonge emlangeni sele nebalaleli nebabukele ekhaya.
Dlamini, I think nasibuka ipool, it's one of lama sporting course ngasho ukuthi wanyalo, if you are to be given permission ukuthi ngingachubeka nidlale, do you think you can follow all the terms and conditions ukuthi everyone is safe to ensure that ukuthi leligciwane COVID-19 is not spread?
Yes, singakhona msakazi, singakhona ngalokuthi nathi singilabanye labafaka ema-contributions ukuthi singenda kanjani ukuthi nasingabuyela ekudlaleni singenda kanjani ukuthi bavikeleke badlali bethu.
I mean, I think another concern is that the sport in most cases is found played in a social area, in a gathering area, singasho ukuthi Tinzawo, singasho ukuthi Echwaleni, and I think those places now have been closed because singasho ukuthi it's a place where ukhanza ukuthi it's too much busy. And how much have you been affected since those places were closed? Ngacala lapho ngosukuba ukuthi how much have you been affected since those places were closed, since the sport ukhanza ukuthi lamatafura atfulakala kule Tinzawo letinjalo?
Affected kakhulu ngoba vele Tinzawo tekudlalela letiningi itholakala ezindaweni letinjalo kodwa sikhona letinye letima stand alone letingekho lapho khona kunathwa khona.
Alright. Lokunye maybe singacala kuva kuwe ngosi ukuthi then now since those places have been closed and maybe you still have one or two places that you can play. If today a sport council comes, it's Dlamini, we're giving you a green light, you can host your tournaments. What are some of the measures you would introduce to ensure ukuthi wonke umuntu usafe?
Okay, siyabonga msana. Ngicabanga ukuthi kuvuleka kwalomdlalo wethu. Ngicabanga ukuthi kungahamba ngama-stage. Mhlambe kungaqala kuvulwe lezo zindawo letingekho Echwaleni. Sivumeleke ukudlala khona. Tinzawo tethu sanitize, amatafula sanitize, badlali bethu. Intindvu kutabole badlala ngato mhlambe kubekisa nje ngoba mhlambe besiye sibolekane. Mhlambe ngiloya benendlu yakhe, acoustic. Wonke umdlali abe nemask. Silandele leto nzelo lebekiwe.
Alright. Ngosi ngihamba na Linda Dlamini eceleni kwami. I think he has got one or two questions. Beyacela ukubuta Ngosi ithuba.
Nkosi mhlambe nje umbuto wami ungaba lula ube mfisha ukuthi naku siyabona ukuthi iCovid-19 iphathamise kangakanani avalwa Tinzawo la kudlalelwa khona. Going forward mhlambe iAssociation ibukile ukuthi ingaba nenzawo yayo noma icenter yayo. Ngiyabekisa nje lapha kalobamba center sports center. Kuthi nani nibe nenzawo nibe namatafula association ibe netimvo leti onako kube ngitayo.
Yes, sikubukile lokho actually kukhona ku strategic plan set lesasubmit ka sports council. Kukhona lokho i-region nge-region ekhamba kwesikhathi kumele sibe nayo inzawo le kanjalo. Le yethu nje ibe nematafula ephula etukwalethi leti khona kwanyalo inzawo leti khona la sidalela khona leti ngekho emajwala.
I think umbuto wokugcina ungaba kubuta ukuthi mhlawumbe if tomorrow you are to start ungasivethela mhlawumbe some of the singathini some of lemsebenzi ningacala kuyo tomorrow, would it be a tournament, would it be kwetikolweni ukucala imidlalo, some of the things singasho ukuthi ti on hold kwanyalo, and if you are given a permission ukuthi ningachubeka you will start on
kungaba okay nje asenibekise njengamanzi nibeka vele ane league ledlalako yamiswa ngilesimo lesavela naselibonjeni bebalungisela kuqala ileague nakhona kwasekuyema kumiswa ngilesimo lesi. So starting point ngaba ukuthi bese siya engagana ne sponsor sethu lebadlali bese siyabathulela lama guidelines labatawalandzela nasekuqala lokudlala. Mhlamba sengibekise naye besiyela ku league kamanzi ukuthi sitawulandzela imithetho ukuze ukuthi baphephe nesizwe.
Siyabonga kakhulu Dlamini, all the best. Asembe ukuthi maybe sport council where they are right now, they are hearing some of their concerns and mhlawumbe batawuvuma ukuthi nichubeke nidlala.
Siyabonga kakhulu siyabonga.
Mlangeni ngosi ukuthi they will ensure that some of the measures are applied. Ngaye kamanzini sport kuphi manzini pool center. And I think some of the things that were raised Dlamini kwabanga ukuthi every now pool player you have your own stick. Because we don't have to change, that's one. Two, awungene kulenzawo ungaka wash it down. That's another thing they consider. Three, the people within the area. Kwanza kuti kuna 3 matafura, but they ensure that maybe those who are not playing can't stand inside, they have to stand outside. I think these are some of the measures but they can ensure ukuthi they are safe.
After ukhuluma vele ngaleti imvukuthi esinokhala abadlala ngato inyalo sokuphucukiwe vele abasashintshiselani noma basabolekani. Wonke mvumo uthatha induku yakhe ayifake esikhwameni sakhe nechoke yakhe, even nechoke because kusebenza ichoke kupool. Ngicabanga ukuthi into tonke le ndlela leto badlali ke labangadlali ngicabanga ukuthi lapha kungangena 3 webantu kungene lolo tour labadlali then kungene nalo tawube ajaja ngalelo langa lalabanye bemela ngaphandle vele bangasonzeli leyo ndzawo leyo ngicabanga ukuthi ihlobo uyasho ukuthi yes leti ndzawo letivaliwe mhlambe le tindzawo tekujabula but tikhona mhlambe letibo 2 or 3 la kungesito ndzawo tekujabula labangasebenzisa ngicabanga ukuthi leto ndzawo leto le league yakamanzini ingachubeka.
They have it. Pool as a sport, one would say it's a sport loved by many. I mean, as much as we haven't heard, maybe I think the national team last represented us. It's back in 2000. It's been long since we represented, but it's a sport. It's practiced by many. It's loved by many. It's also another sport that deserves a chance. Now, shooting, last on our list. Shooting, I mean, it's a scary sport. You see, he wouldn't borrow me your gun. So that's an advantage. You could see it's a scary sport. You have to carry, having a license of having a gun, it's having a license. You could see you can't borrow it to someone. I think that's an advantage on its own. But that's a sibugare sport, the distance, labe makona kona, naba check a score sheet.
I-shooting Fabrice ukhuluma nge-sport ngicabanga ukuthi ukhuluma ukuthi sinebungoti but i-sport lesi ngicabanga ukuthi safe kunato tonke ti-sport lengangatibona mina sike sawo cover kanengi sinenhlanhla ke nala kithi ka Eswatini TV ukhona nasiphuma vimbela lo dlala wona le nakhuza leyo le sport leso ngicabanga ukuthi nawubuka nalabema laba lokuchelelana it's over a meter so ukuthi nawudubula nje wona ngale nami ngala sesikhulu kakhulu esikhala ngicabanga ukuthi bangabuyela abadlali and njengoba soshilo ukuthi bonake ithulusi labalisebenzisa kulomdlalo sibhamu kubolekwana nangabe i-license yakho yesibhamu kungisakho nje nami nginesami isibhamu ngebe sesikabolekwana ngicabanga ukuthi khona bangadlala and futhi ke bona bangadlala bafake namask because kude la kungaba affecta khona sport i-shooting njengoba sengishilo ukuthi sport lesi safe kunato tonke ti-sport and discipline ngalenye indlela because inqumbi yabo bakulama force ukhuluma ngeorder and nalaba labangekho kuma force lama civil ngicabanga sinakhona iorder bayihambisa phambili kakhulu.
Sikhuluma ngale sport because I think another thing that caught my attention I think it's about a few months ago when they were opening a facility, a correctional. I think ladies now are coming up, women in shooting. I think numbers are coming from forces like you just mentioned, but we still also have civilians coming from outside, women civilians willing to learn the sport. It's a scary sport, and I think we will adapt as a nation.
For President we keep on saying it's a scary sport, but ngicabanga ukuthi unangabe uke wasithatha sibhamu wadubula uyeva ukuthi nangabe bonetinkinga noma nangabe bone stress nawufika le shooting range letinkinga tifike kuphele tonke nawucetha kudubula ngale sibhamu ngicabanga nje ukuthi sport leso lesikunika lo kwehla emaphaphu njoba usho ukuthi inqumbi yabo sisi yabo dzadze sebayasijoina le sport lokuyinvo lenhle Fabrice sport lesingakhethi lesithi wonke umuntu igender noma ngabe wesifazana noma ngabe wesilisa sidlala.
Alright, there you have it, and of course that's the journey today, looking at some of the sporting codes, 5 sporting codes we took a look at today. The cycling, we had an opinion from one of the top clubs. We talked about tennis, we heard from Maxwell Jelle, and of course golf. We once heard from the president himself, Albert Mhlanga, mentioning that for them there was not even a way that they were not allowed to stop playing. We talked about pool, you heard it from Muntu. I mean, of course there's also a shooting we just touched on. Now maybe next week we'll also take another journey to look at some other sporting codes. There is swimming to also take a look at. There is horse riding. I mean, all those sporting codes that we think at this point in time they are not a threat. Athletics, they also think they are not a threat. We also touch on them in the company of Lamin and their representative online, of course, to understand if they are to be given a green light, how can they proceed. Overseas, Lamin, I think the top story is the UFC fighter, the Irishman, Mr. McGregor. He has retired again for the 3rd time in 4 years. What's happening with this man?
Conor McGregor siyamathi ukuthi li-clown uyayathanda kwakhe headlines ngicabanga nyalo so retire kwesithathu
usubolekile
uthi sport ngicabanga ukuthi so lose excitement kule sports se UFC siyathi ukuthi yena Conor McGregor is one of my legends kule sports so wine emahlandla semkhumbula futhi nanga ka boxing wakwazama wathi uchallenger yena Mayweather bamehlula wangeshaya i12 round but ngicabanga ukuthi njengoba ngisho mina ukuthi iclown lena ufuna iattention kuyibusiness ke lokho na Fabrice because khona benda njena lama boxers I retire bese sekuthiwa nangabe ufuna kumchallenger ubeke imali esetulu ngikugatsile nje mina Fabrice ungapheli lomnyaka noma early next year uVictor McGregor wenda i-comeback bam offerisha 250 million US dollars timali temafilm so uyabona ukuthi kuyi mind games nangasho kanjalo because it's only 31 inqumbi inqumbi yama fighters
it could be maybe ukuthi khona la kuphethe in terms of imali
yes siyakhumbula ukuthi last week besikhuluma i-list yema top athletes lana mali beka khona naye kuleyo list le but njengoba ngisho ukuthi mind games lawa at 31 usaselelwe about 8 years adlala le sport ngicabanga nje ukuthi mind games utawubuyela next year adlala
nakhuluma nga-FC Dlamini I think it's a sport, it's a combination of boxing and martial art. I think there's a bit of boxing, but there's also your karate. So it's a sport you it's mixed martial art together with boxing.
Vele UFC Fabrice kuthiwa mixed martial arts ne boxing. Lokusho ukuthi uyashaya ngesibhakela but nangenyawo uyashaya. Phinze lo mvumbambe uvumelekile lokuthi umbambe umncishe lo moya. Sidlalwa kanjalo nje Fabrice lincaba ukuthi incumbi yabo labantu basilandzela ne boxing because kuyinhlanganisela sport lesikahle but hey kudinga ukuthi ujime ke Fabrice because nabakuncisha lo moya i-fight yakhe egcina nje McGregor akagcizanga ngisho minute wavela 49 seconds wavele nje washaya wamshaya yaphela igame so ngicaba ukuthi utawubuya Fabrice ngeke uphele lo mnyaka noma early next year asabuyile.
We hold you to that. Now another top athlete making headlines is Rafael Nadal. Nadal would see if there's no need to rush, then we should wait. COVID is still here. You know, Vangas would say, Kwanyara, we don't have to rush into going to competition. I mean, you talk about your US Open, we were talking about some of the best tournaments in Paris. But it feels like at this point in time, there's no need to rush. What's in Dlamini?
Rafael Nadal siyakhumbula ukuthi last week sakhuluma Roland Garros i-tournament la sayiwina ka-12 lokusho ukuthi ema-major nje Grand Slam la sawawinile ang-19 lokusho ukuthi lona is one of the most decorated tennis player of all time. Uyaphuma ke uyasho ukuthi yena ucabanga ukuthi ema-games abo asekeme kancane uva ngathi asekeme kancane. Siyakhumbula ukuthi tennis inhlangano le ngamele i-tennis emhlabeni itsite atawubuya ema-games end of July but yena uthi uyacela iwari yakhe ke Fabrice lenkulu kakhulu ngile traveling uwari ukuthi nabatravela nakasuka eSpain aye France kuvele obvious ukuthi utawuhambe airport batawudibana nebantu so dina nje letimvula la tibalile but uthi until kube safe 100% asekume then sekungadlalwa ke na safe
ngosi namuhla mhla ka9 I mean 8 English Premiership ibuya mhla ka17. I'm sure you can't wait.
I can't wait, Fabrice. I can't wait. It's been a while. So ingakabuyi English Premier League, but
time is against us.
Yeah. Sitawubona because my exciting games. So abonile lamanye ma teams bekadlala itolo Arsenal bedlala i-friendly game ya winner 6-0. So we can't wait.
Wow. They have it. And of course, when he's in the studio, it is about sport. It cannot end. And thank you very much, of course, for being with us and to ensure that everything that we talk about, you're part of it. And of course, for those who joined us on YouTube platforms, it is a much appreciated moment for us to have you taking a look at what we have to offer in terms of sporting activities. From the moment, of course, we had MTN Kamani as one of the top cycling club in the country to tell us about what the club is about, what do they do. And from the moment also, they gave us an opinion to what they think about the sport. Should they be given a green light, cycling can ensure that COVID is not spread. Talk about pool, talk about tennis, talk about golf. All those sporting courts also gave us an assurity that they can proceed without a failure. Of course, I did that in the company of Linda Dlamini and the entire sport crew as Eswatini TV keeps on giving you what's the best when it comes to sport. Otherwise, for us and me, Fabrice Msonera, Silvera Gamnanzi.